We are up and running on a Thursday night, everybody. Congratulations. You've almost made it to the end of February. Welcome in, everybody, to the Gem City Sports Podcast, brought to you, as always, by our friends at Rebich Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. If you want more information, head over to the website, www.rebichinvestments.com, or call their number during normal business hours. That includes tomorrow, 814-734-3433, 814-734-3433. Rebich Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. Well, if you've missed the last couple of weeks of playoff action, my goodness, have you missed a lot. We're breaking down everything tonight. Tom Koval going to join us in a few minutes. We're talking all things high school basketball, from the District 10 semifinals, many of which happened yesterday and Tuesday, to the District 10 finals coming up tomorrow and Saturday. Plus, we have Kevin O'Connor from McDowell Boys Basketball joining us as well, off of their big win against Alderdice and their huge matchup tomorrow, less than 24 hours from now, against State College. Nick Artman joins me, probably more awake than I am at this point in the evening, Nick.
Listen, you may have done double pod duty tonight, but I've been teaching since 8 a.m., so I'm here. I'm excited. Listen, this is one of those weeks. We have conversations with people all the time, right, about the show, about the podcast, about what we do, and they're like, how do you talk high school sports? Weeks like this are exactly why we talk high school sports. What an amazing week of basketball, both the boys and girls side here in District 10. I mean, yeah, if you're not paying attention, pay attention, because there's some good stuff happening.
Well, and I'll tell you what, it's kind of funny because, sometimes we make predictions on this show and we look silly. I think this week has actually led us to believe that we're smarter than probably what we deserve credit for, because a lot of the things that we've mentioned have been on our radar and have come to pass, and we're going to get into that in a moment, specifically the Northwestern Mercyhurst prep game that came down last night, maybe the best game of the entire tournament, boys and girls alike, in District 10 so far. So lots to get to. Let's get into it, and in case you missed it, last night, my goodness, what a win for, not 2 nights ago, it's already been, hard to believe, for the McDowell Trojans, who took down Alderdice 72-39 in the PIAA 6A Sub-Regional. This has been a back and forth between these two teams. The 7th time they've met in the playoffs since 2015. McDowell now has won 2 straight. And really, Nick, from that game, we're going to bring on Coach O'Connor in a second, but, these two teams typically, when they play each other close. But I was at the game. I had a chance to call the game. Very impressed by what I saw with this McDowell Trojan team. And I'll tell you what, probably their most complete effort of the season. It took them until the 3:30, 3:20 mark to score in the first quarter. Then after that, they just took off.
Yeah, dude, listen, you talk about we call things right, and we call things wrong a lot of times too. And I was a little nervous about Alderdice coming up and, having to play against McDowell. And I was a little worried. Anytime you got a Pittsburgh team, coming against a D10 team, there's always that stigma. And maybe that's my Pittsburgh bias coming out. But, I mean, this was an incredible game from the McDowell boys, and just kind of taking over from the first second and never looking back.
They got a chance to ring the victory bell on Tuesday. They're hoping a chance to do it on Friday night, albeit away from home. Their head coach, Kevin O'Connor, joining us live on the podcast tonight. And we feel somewhat guilty for keeping him up, but I don't think you're getting sleep tonight, Coach.
No, not much sleep going on tonight, but hopefully a couple hours. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah.
Well, if you're not going to sleep, you might as well come on and talk basketball with us.
Hey, whatever we got to do to talk hoops, I'm in.
Hey, and obviously, wish for you that you didn't have to travel, but that's, I guess, the way the land works this time of year. Let's reminisce on Tuesday, shall we? I know that you and I talked briefly before the game, and you said, look, second matchup between us this year. You'd played them in the regular season. It was really even through 3 quarters, and you pulled away there in the 4th. Take me through the first 4.5 minutes and what you had to do to get adjusted to start getting things right. Because I think it looked like out of the gate there were some things that were giving you fits, but once you figured it out and got quite literally the first basket, you took off. What had to change?
Yeah, I think just we needed some shots to fall. We had some quality looks, and they just didn't go in. And I knew it was going to be a spark, and boom, once it started, it kind of just engulfed. And slow start is kind of our mantra a little bit, which is frustrates the coach a little bit and the fans as well. But, we're just down 4-0 and breathe. And we knew the shots would fall. And once our defense got going, I think we put on a pretty good show.
Yeah, and again, you look at the way that you played all the way really through the entire first half, and there were a lot of players that you could name specifically that were big in this game. Camden had 25, Camden Kramer, your senior shooting guard, at 25. But I want to start with Blaze Myers because we were joking on the broadcast. He had a couple of home run passes, and we said, okay, there's the quarterback in him, but he really attacked the glass really, really well. And the one thing that I noticed in the game, and I'm sure you did too, is that his one move underneath the hoop was so dominant, and I think once he knew it was going to work, he went back to it. How impressed were you with his game on Tuesday? Because it just seemed like he went up a different level than even what he's been this season.
Yeah, he really carried us Thursday in the D10 championship game late, had some big buckets, and we put some sets in for him, rightfully so. He had those 2 spin moves in the post, got going, and besides the points, we've been calling him playoff Blaze here the last couple of days, and he eats up a stat sheet. I mean, he had about 8 boards, 7 or 8 assists. He was perfect from the floor, and we keep track of deflections. He had 8 of those. I mean, when you do that to a stat sheet, I mean, it's really cool to see. And Blaze has consistently done that for our team: steals, assists, rebounds, deflections, and he's a vocal leader, which you can't, as a coach, you can never have enough of that.
Yeah, and he seems like that guy that plays with his body too. Every time you're watching highlights of him, he's willing to get in there under the net. He's willing to kind of box people out. He's not afraid, like you said. He's getting in there with the deflections. And maybe that comes from his football background. I think it's just his size. It's the type of game that he plays. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it just seems like he's taken that to the next level. And then you have the connection with him and Camden Kramer and how long they have been playing together. And you even see that come together in a game like this. Kramer puts up 25. It's just it looks like a really fun 1-2 punch to coach.
Yeah, obviously they're cousins and they go back a long way. And I guarantee you, Kramer's got over almost 1,100 points here. Blaze probably has 300, 400 baseball passes to him up the court for layups. So certainly a great connection there. And I love our guys. I think we have 17 guys that compete day in and day out, and certainly this was Blaze's time to shine along with Cam, and as well as some other guys like Finazzo too.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about Camden specifically, Coach, because we've seen his growth and maturation. You've seen it firsthand about the way that he's been able to handle the ball and now his shooting touch. And I hesitate to ask because I know you probably never give anyone the green light to shoot from anywhere on the floor. But is he at the point now in the playoffs where he's just got the green light to really shoot anywhere on the floor?
Yeah, pretty much so. I mean, we do probably every practice between 4 to 6 shooting drills. And, Landon Marsh, Camden Kramer, they win them consistently. And when you do that, we have a shooting drill called green light. And if you get in a certain amount of number and a certain amount of time, you have a green light. And, we run a lot of things for our shooters. But, I very rarely will we say, Cam, Landon, Leo, that's a bad shot. It's just not, because we do shoot the ball pretty well.
Your press on Tuesday was significant. We mentioned our play of the game. There was a moment in the second quarter where you forced 3 straight turnovers, and I think Blaze ended up getting all 3 buckets. And I know you've done that, in spurts of the season, but I know that was, again, another part of the strategy against Alderdice. Just don't let their big guy get to the bucket to begin with, and he really didn't until late in the fourth quarter. How impressed were you with the press, and how much is that, when it's working, how important is that to your defense? Because it just seemed like there was a point in this, again, a second quarter where you just didn't let them get to the hoop at all.
Yeah, I think timing, certainly whether or not we want to keep the ball in front of us. If they have some guards that we think we can pressure a little bit, we'll do that. There's some teams on our schedule that we did not press this year just because we were scared they would get easy buckets. And it's not to say the Alderdice, I just thought we could pressure them a little bit, and we want to speed tempo up. Our defense makes teams speed up a little bit, and usually that works to our advantage.
Isaac mentioned that game earlier. You played them earlier in the season, back on January 11th. You win 77-56. How much of that game informed you guys coming into this game? Did you feel like you were better prepped because you'd already played them? Did they seem to change their style at all? What are you seeing from the coach's eye there?
It's funny. We schedule these games on purpose just because they are traditionally a roadblock in the playoffs. And each time we play them regular season and come postseason, they are different. This year, not as much, but I know last year, the same with State College. I mean, they just, Coach Crummy is a great coach at Alderdice. He made some adjustments. But certainly I know our personnel. I know it was a home playoff game for us, the first one to my knowledge in over a couple decades. and our guys just weren't going to let that game get out of hand. And again, just something I'm very proud of, and we're excited.
Kevin O'Connor, McDowell boys basketball head coach, joining the show tonight on this Thursday, less than 24 hours before they play State College. The Little Lions, they are not. They have given you fits. They did last year, and I think everyone who knows you knows that you were really hoping to get them again and have that opportunity again this season. Talk to me about what they present and maybe some of the challenges that you faced last year against that team that you might look to try to hone in on this season when you get them again tomorrow night.
Last year we went down there, played them in the regular season, and we got a pretty not easy win, but a win. And then we saw them in the playoffs, and they were completely a different team. They had made adjustments, their style of play, everything was different. We had them on the regular season this year, and then weather kind of shut that down the day of. So we've watched our staff. First of all, shout out to my staff because we've scouted them. I think we know what State College is eating for dinner tomorrow, and we have an idea what they're going to do. They're well coached. They execute their offense. I haven't seen a team be this efficient on simple basketball, cuts, screens, just reversing the basketball. They're very, very good at it. And when you do something, they counter it. And, it's impressive to watch. We've been working on it for the last 2 days in practice. And, man, it's going to take a complete team effort and a lot of communication on the defensive end for us. And, we're excited for the challenge. Like I said, we're going to go about 45 minutes away, get some shots up at a local high school nearby just to get loose. But, we're expecting to get, State College's best punch, and, hopefully we take it and punch back.
No, I think that State College, I mean, even if you go back, wasn't able to find much looking back at Max Preps. They're 10-12 this year, 4-10 in conference. But like you said, I mean, the regular season doesn't seem to matter for them. They seem like they come in as a different team, as a lot of people do to come playoffs. What's kind of the one thing not to go into your coaching strategy or give away anything for your strategy, but what's the one thing that you're looking for them to bring, to this game to try and shut you guys down?
Well, I think they've disrupted, with it, whether it be a matchup zone, whether that be some sort of extended zone. They have that in their repertoire to kind of slow us down. In the past, they've switched a lot of things, screens, which kind of can jam us up a little bit. So we've learned along the way what our kryptonite is, and we've worked on it. Again, State College is a team that plays in a difficult conference out there. Not a lot of people know who they play. Sure. I will tell you, they knocked off Central York, who was a top 3, 4, 6A team in the state just 2 weeks ago. So this is a good basketball team that plays a tough schedule, and we're going to their place, and they're going to be ready for us.
Going to be a fun one tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, McDowell State College. Just saw him pop up, and so I think it would only be fun and exciting to get a chance for you to chat with the guy who was your rival coach, and of course, I obviously you have that great relationship with him. In Tom Koval. TK, sorry, I know your practice probably ran late, and we're happy to have you on here. But it's so interesting because the dynamic between Erie and McDowell the last few years, we know the rivalry has grown to a point where now, and I have said this for a while, that it is the one game in District 10 in playoffs that is going to come down to the wire no matter what. TK, from what you saw, whether it be on Tuesday or the D10 championship game, what about this McDowell team impressed you, especially in that game on Tuesday night?
Well, I think it's something I didn't say all the time about them, but their defense has been so good. I mean, to watch every player in that team, buy into team defense, and they play so hard defense. Just from a basketball standpoint, that's really fun to watch. I'm sure it helps that they got, a lot of seniors, that have been in the program, and Kevin's really got them buying into it. I just, from my perspective, from what I like to watch, I think teams can be really effective in the playoffs if they play really great defense. And boy, they're playing defense right now. So kudos to you, Kev.
Thanks, Tom. It's always nice to get a compliment out of you, buddy.
I was going to say, I miss this. I miss you too in the games that you had a chance to play against each other, and but still the rivalry continuing nonetheless. KOC, the last one I want to ask you, and I think that this is, you've had a chance to be at McDowell for a long time. You've gotten a chance to see a lot of things. What makes this team special compared to the other ones that you've coached? You got a lot of veteran leadership, that's obvious. But is there something that stands out about this unit in 2025 that maybe is, out from among the rest that you have coached in your tenure with the Trojans?
Well, I think Tom kind of hit it right on the head there is, these guys guard. I've had players that have guarded. But I think the 7-8 guys we put on the court, they're out there competing their butts off. They're in a stance. All our statistics are up on the defensive end: steals, deflections, charges. It's all of them. We've always had a player or two that can really guard. We have a team that can guard, and I think if they're willing to do that consistently like we are, I mean, it's a special group. So that for sure stands out to me.
No, I
Nick,
was
you
going
got
to say,
one more.
yeah, you took the question out of my mouth, but you said you're not going to get a lot of sleep tonight, right? And this is obviously a big game coming in. You're coming off of a great game against Alderdice. What's your last piece of advice for your team going into the game?
We've had a lot of quotes to these guys. One of my assistants, Coach Costello, kill or be killed. I'm just going to remind them to share that glory, be a great teammate out there. If this is your last high school game, let's make sure we empty that tank. And, no regrets. Don't leave anything on that court. And let's not drive back 4 hours with a loss.
Love it. Coach O'Connor joining us on the podcast. Congratulations again on Tuesday. We wish you the best tomorrow. And again, hopefully you come out of there with the dub coming up on Friday night.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Kevin O'Connor, McDowell boys basketball head coach. Big game tomorrow, McDowell State College. It's now gone from football to basketball because these two teams seemingly meet each other every year. It is a shame that they have to go to State College again. That was the case last year, and it just stings, I'm sure, that they have to make the drive. But a little bit of extra motivation as they look to move on to what is going to be another opportunity at the state tournament. Tom Koval joining us now. TK, again, for this Trojan team, we saw on Tuesday, Camden Kramer puts up the points, but we were just talking about Blaze Myers and how difficult he can be to defend. And he had his best game of the season on Tuesday night, it seemed.
Yeah, he came up with some really big buckets towards the end of the game. And, when things get tight like that, you need somebody to make plays. And what better than a big, strong senior, leader on the football team, leader in the basketball court, who's probably had a little chip on his shoulder from not being able to play last year. But yeah, he came up big for them at the end of that game.
So McDowell State College coming up tomorrow night, 6 o'clock. Winner of that game gets vaulted into the official state tournament. This is still considered the state tournament, but now you don't have any more sub-regional games after that, and they would face, I believe, the Whitfield 3 seed is the official moniker in 6A, which, again, those Whitfield teams are all good. We're going to get into some more high school basketball playoff talk in a second. Go to the girls' side because, my gosh, was there a heck of a game last night. Before that, though, talk about Rebich Investments, our great sponsor of the show, who help us out with not just our podcast, but for all of you in keeping financial guidance simple. If you want more info, it's simple. Go to their website, www.rebichinvestments.com, or you can simply call their phone number at 814-734-3433. Again, 814-734-3433 today. Well, Tom, you missed this at the beginning of the show, but Nick and I talked about that, most of the time we make predictions and it ends up falling on our face. But we on Monday talked about one specific game between Paul Adamsek and I that we thought was going to deliver, and my goodness, it did. Let's start in girls basketball, the reaction to last night's semifinal game. In case you missed the box score, Michaela Presser-Palmer and the Northwestern Wildcats, if I were to tell you coming into last night's game that the rest of the team minus MPP would score a combined 8 points and still beat Mercyhurst Prep, you'd think I'm crazy. But again, Michaela Presser-Palmer is a stud. She had 38 in the victory against Mercyhurst Prep last night, 46-42, the final score in that game. We were talking on Monday just about the fact that I think all season long, Steve Sawin has had to toe a fine line. And we asked him this when he came on the show. How much do you let Michaela Presser-Palmer dominate the game, and how much do you want your entire team to get involved? It's fascinating to me that now as this season is going along, and in a game like that last night, that he just put the ball in Presser-Palmer's hands and told her to go, TK. And I was, as even though, Mercyhurst Prep was certainly keying in on her, 38 in a game like that, to me, is remarkable. Maybe her best performance of the season.
I mean, keying on her. They were more than keying on her. They were.
I'm putting it lightly.
Yeah.
People, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and you have to. And Steve knows, right? It comes down to the question of whether you want to win or not, right? You want to put the ball in your best player's hands. And I trust Michaela would find a wide open girl if she needed to. But they were unable to guard her with two girls. And it was impressive to watch. Matter of fact, in practice tonight, I was talking to two of my coaches that both have daughters. I said, and they haven't seen her play yet. I said, you got to go out and see her play. Her athleticism, her ability to get to the rim and score, her ability to shoot outside. I go, she can score at all three levels. I go, it's really impressive. And she plays so hard for a girl that's that good. If you have your best player playing harder than anybody else on the floor, I mean, what a great thing for them. And boy, did she come up big against Mercyhurst Prep.
Yeah, and they needed to. I mean, again, this game was close through and through. Northwestern had a bit of a lead at the half. Mercyhurst Prep played a really good third quarter. 18 points was their best marker in the third and really kept it close until the very end. And we talked even last week, Nick, that if it got to this point, beating a team 3 times, specifically a Dan Perfetto coach team, is almost a near impossibility. And I think it's easy to say at this point, without Michaela Presser-Palmer playing the way she did, certainly Northwestern's not going to win the game. But what a freaking testament to MPP in the fact that, again, players and teams don't do this against Dan Perfetto coach teams. He's just too good. His strategy is too good, and yet somehow they still prevailed, Nick.
Yeah, this is no knock on Seneca. This is the game that I was kind of worried about, is if they had to play against Mercyhurst Prep again in the tournament, I was worried they weren't going to get past this game. Like you said, Mercyhurst Prep is always ready to play. Mari Nixon is a phenomenal, shooter from the field. Easterling had some great defensive plays in this one as well. So like, this was the curse of Sposta, like I talked to. They're undefeated all year. They're supposed to come in and dominate this tournament. Well, Mercyhurst Prep knows that. They want to get their win. They like you said, they lost twice in the league. But I'll tell you what, Presser-Palmer, she is not only just a scorer, she was playing incredible defense, that steal at the end of the game. I mean, she was up and down that court everywhere she needed to be. And to Tom's point, she was not only just shooting, she's passing the ball around, and she's being a true leader. She's firing up her team. I mean, I've never coached basketball, but I would bet that anybody would want a player like that on their team. Yeah, exactly.
Get it raised for TK. You may have wanted her on the Erie boys team at this point. But TK, I want to ask you as the coach, because Steve, I think, put it really, really well with, how do you find a balance between letting Michaela do everything or a star player do everything and trying to get the team involved. But how do you feel like Coach Sewin has handled it? And do you feel like a game like that last night was an appropriate time? Like, when is an appropriate time essentially to let a star be a star? Because I feel like last night was that time and they made it count.
I mean, I think you have to set that tone from day one, right? You need the team to recognize roles and accept it. You don't want a girl to think she's a scorer because it's regular season, it doesn't matter. Then all of a sudden we're going to change things. So I think Steve certainly probably had that role set out throughout the season. I mean, she averaged a ton of points. She was the key of the offense. And you could tell by watching the game that Michaela's teammates knew that she was going to make the play. They had trust in her. They had faith in her. They were still setting screens and making spacing on the floor. They're still playing hard defense. So there was no animosity. You could tell that he's got that team balanced and they know what their roles are and they expect her to be a scorer and make plays for her, and they do the other little things. And if you do that, you're golden.
So, guys, let's talk the D10 championship because, as Nick mentioned, it was the game Mercyhurst Prep Northwestern he was concerned about, and yet Seneca was the one team, save for Fairview early in the season, that I think gave Northwestern the most fits in District 10. They were up at the half, pretty sizably at the half on Northwestern the last time these two teams played. The Wildcats have won both matchups, but Seneca has been able to roll through the tournament in the one game they played to Greenville. And I look at this game, again, it's going to be the Haggerty Saturday at 1:30, and I ask the same question, how can you beat a team 3 times? I think, both these teams are going to make the state tournament, and I would agree that I think it's probably Northwestern's game to lose. I'll tell you what, though, not going to be another easy road for the Wildcats because Seneca, I think, is playing their best basketball, and they played Northwestern as good as any team did this season.
Yeah, if you look down at their schedule, the whole body of work of what they've done, the tough games they've had, teams did really well defensively, right? I mean, Fairview's a phenomenal defensive team.
Yeah.
that game in the 30s, right? I think 33-30 was the final score. If you look at Seneca, they kept it in the low 40s, in the 30s as well. So I think to maximize your chances of winning, right, you want to keep the ball out of her hands, right? So defensively, you can slow the game down, you can keep it low scoring. That's going to give you the best advantage. And Seneca did a really great job in that regular season game. They still didn't come on top, but I think that's the best recipe for the chance of winning, and Steve Carter's got them playing that way. So I look for them to really try to make it a low scoring game to try to stay in it again.
And you wonder, Nick, what Steve Carter does when watching film from the Mercyhurst prep game, right? You know, even doubling Michaela Presser-Palmer is not necessarily going to work. It'll be intriguing to me what strategy he brings out early in the game, to Tom's point about the defensive side, because, again, it's easier said than done.
Yeah, and I mean, the defensive side is one thing, right? I mean, you have to stop Presser-Palmer. And if you can, or at least slow her down, then you have a chance to win. And I think the positive for Seneca going into this is that it's kind of the opposite, right? I mean, they have a lot of good players. They don't have that star, maybe like an MPP who's going to dominate a game, but they have 4, 5, 6 players that can rotate in and out, and they're consistently scoring. They're passing the ball around. I was catching up on some of the highlights, and I think it was on John Leidick's broadcast over at Erie News Now. There was a quote coming out from one of the Seneca girls and say a lot of times they try to force it because they're trying to pass so much. So I think in this case, I mean, that's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to slow down Michaela Presser-Palmer. You can't let her just dominate and play a full court press all night like she looked like she did the other night. But, I think a team like Seneca, with that good defense and their ability to slow the ball down, pass it around, and give it to anybody to score, that could be a recipe for success for Seneca in this one.
So Seneca Northwestern coming up on Saturday. Tom, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you had to look at a winner here, do you have any initial thoughts as to who you think will take this?
I mean, you can't not go with the best player on the floor. They've been winning all year. They're coming off I think they played Mercyhurst Prep 2 games in a row, right? Certainly. Yeah. So they're stepping up. The bell rings and they're out there ready to go. So I would lean towards them, but I know Steve Carter's going to have them ready. I can see him throwing a wrinkle at them. Maybe something like Gerard did, where you have a little soft zone and you're denying Michaela a little bit to make it a different look for so she's not comfortable. They're not going back and watching the 2 Seneca films and going to see the same thing because they weren't successful. They lost most of those. So I'd like to see Steve come out with something just a little different, right? And something they're not prepared for, and hopefully it becomes a really good game.
I would think, Nick, it's going to be just like the Mercyhurst Prep game and how close it'll be.
Yeah, I kind of went into this tournament thinking they were going to fall at some point. I'm like Tom, I'm going to the best player into the tournament, and I'm going with Northwestern in this one. At this point, after seeing the performance that she had against Mercyhurst Prep, I'm not even going to pretend like I doubt her at this point.
I'm with you guys, but I think I'll go off a little bit of a tangent here. I think the great thing about Northwestern is, while Michaela Presser-Palmer is clearly the best player on the floor, I think even if Seneca were to hold her to 25, Northwestern can get to 45 with the rest of the players they have. To Tom's point, the strategy clearly from Northwestern last night was just get the ball to Michaela and let her go. Yep. If that can be something that you can modify mid-game, I think they have the players to be able to put up, let's say Michaela again gets 25. You can put up 20 points. I think 45 points is going to be good enough to win the game. I think it's, again, down to the wire. I think it's going to be a 5, maybe 4 3-point game. But I would take Northwestern in that one as well, but close. Again, I think this has been a great 3A tournament, and it's going to be a great championship game as well. Speaking of championship games, we got a great doubleheader at the Haggerty because Harbor Creek and Fairview is also happening on Saturday on the girls' side, and that's a third matchup between these two teams. Fairview won the previous 2. I think these are 2 of my favorite coaches in District 10. Mark Corey does a great job with Harbor Creek. Of course, we know Aaron Garrity and the wonderful job he does with Fairview. But again, the storyline of this podcast tonight is things that we have talked about in the past coming to fruition. And what we mentioned last week, Tom, I remember in talking about the Tigers, is that they have an uncanny ability, despite what shortcomings they may have in the regular season, albeit they don't have that many, to just hold teams to teens in points in playoffs. Happened in their semifinal game. Now they have a chance to do it in the championship. What about Fairview's defense flips a switch? I mean, let's just say they're at a 9 in the regular season. They're at an 11 or a 12 now. What does Aaron Garrity do, or what does this team do that locks it down as much as they do in the postseason?
Well, it's their culture, right? They're all doing it. They all buy in. They got tough guards that pressure the heck out of the ball. You got Bria inside protecting the rim. It's just they just have all the ingredients for a really good defensive team. And then Aaron just cooks it properly. He has a culture there where they want to do it. For a team to do that, every team to play so hard defensively. I mean, they just played the Franklin team and they held their top score to 10 points, right? Like they take pride in it, right? And I know Aaron does when I talk to him. I mean, that's one of the first things we talk about is the defensive part of the game. Defensive player of the year in the GLIAC when he was in college. So he loves that part of it, right? And the girls feed off of it and they do it too. So just to watch them hold teams to low scoring, and I've been that my whole life with basketball. I tell my youth girls now, if you can stop them from scoring, you're going to be in the game, right? Because you can't always shoot well.
Yeah, I think for me, I think this is my favorite game of the weekend. Nothing against, the Northwestern Seneca showdown. I think this game has the potential to be fireworks. I think Harbor Creek, having won the 2 games during the regular season, we've said several times now, it's tough to beat a team 3 times in a row. And, I think Harbor Creek, you have this Fairview Harbor Creek rivalry coming back around. And I think Harbor Creek would love nothing more than to stop the three-peat a la Philadelphia Eagles. So I just think this is going to be a lot of fun to watch. I mean, you're going to have Probilski versus Garrity. And it's just going to be, I think, it's going to be a heavyweight fight, and I know I say that a lot, but I mean, this is true. You have this crosstown rivalry. You have 2 big teams that have a lot of history. It's going to be so much fun.
We always play up McDowell Erie on the boys' side, and of course TK because that has been the rivalry in boys basketball. But I think even more incredible on the girls' side has been the fact that Fairview and Harbor Creek have gone toe-to-toe, regular season and postseason, so much in the last few seasons. And I think when you have 2 veteran head coaches like you do, and Coach Corey and Coach Garrity, we talk about different wrinkles that you could put in. You're not going to see any different wrinkles. But I'm so fascinated to see, and we've talked about this all season long, is there going to be a team that is capable of breaking Fairview's defensive prowess? Because even Northwestern early in the season, even in a win against the Tigers in a 33-30 game, heck, by the way, if we had a mega tournament, how wonderful of a matchup would that be, Northwestern and Fairview, if we're combining classes here. But I digress. I think this is, in a way, like Michaela Presser-Palmer took over the game Wednesday. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you're Mark Corey to see Brooke Przbilski just take over a game on Saturday? And if there is one game that she has an opportunity to do so, you'd love it to be Saturday. I just wonder, Tom, put yourself in Mark Corey's shoes here. I mean, again, Fairview well. What do you have to do, number one, to make sure that you can score points? Because that defense is going to be ready to go Saturday afternoon.
Well, the problem is that Paige Garrity is guarding Brooke.
Right.
He's tenacious defensively. And Brooke guards Paige. Right. So they're both just expelling so much energy on each other. And I watched the game at Fairview last time, and I could just see Brooke was exhausted in the 4th quarter because what a tall order to guard the point guard, and you're expected to score. That's not easy. I think that's one advantage for Fairview is they have a little bit more scoring outside of Paige. There's a little bit more pressure on Brooke to score. With the face guarding stuff, I'd love to see Brooke setting more screens to get open as opposed to working so hard to try to come off a screen. With the face guarding, sometimes if you set screens for other girls and you force the person face guarding you to help, you can get open a little bit easier. But I think that's going to be one of the keys is to get her the ball easily in a spot where she can score, and that's no easy feat.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I guess my follow-up question then to that is, and again, I know Harbor Creek's defense is also Mark Corey prides himself in that. Not that you want to take your best player off of Fairview's best player, but is it a situation where you try to play more zone? Do you try to match up differently on defense so that Brooke can be more geared towards offense? I mean, again, I know you want to stop Paige Garrity, but do you try to keep Brooke with some energy going into the 4th quarter, let's say? How would you do anything like that at all, Tom, to try to give Brooke some more, breath in the lungs heading into the final frame?
I mean, I'm a firm believer as a coach is you do what's best for your team. If your team is really good at playing man-to-man, then you want to play man-to-man, right? You want to put yourself in the best position where they're comfortable and they can succeed. If Brooke's your best defender, then you're putting her on their best offensive player. And you got to make plays down the stretch. Just like we talked about, MPP, you're giving the ball to your best player, right? Well, Fairview's best scorer is Paige right now, and then I want my best defender on her, and we're going to throw everything that we got at him. Right. So that's where I'm going. I don't think you can try to save things. You just got to put pressure on your big players and hopefully they play big.
Nick, how do you see this one going? And you mentioned it's your favorite game of the weekend, and it's gonna succeed the Northwestern Seneca game right afterwards at 3:00. How do you see this playing out?
I think, like TK said, I think when you look at the two teams and how they play against each other and how they stack up against each other, I think Fairview maybe has the better team. But, man, I can't shake this gut feeling that Harbor Creek is going to win this one. I think it's going to be close. I think they want it a little more. I think they just have that little extra edge of, hey, these guys took us out twice this year. We don't want them to three-peat. And I think, kind of like what Tom was saying, if they can find a way to get Przybylski some rest and maybe, find some other people like Denning who's the other person I'm thinking of? King and Benham. If you can get them to kind of pick up some of that slack, then I just think that there's maybe a little more fire coming from the Harbor Creek side just because they're looking for that upset. So I'm going to follow my gut on this one, and I'm going Harbor Creek.
TK, what say you?
Well, I don't know what he ate, but his gut's telling him wrong. Much offense for Fairview, right? That's what I'm gonna kind of lean on. The Fairview's got more weapons offensively, and I know that they're rivals. You can see it from the 5th grade level, 7th grade. Those are the two best teams in the county battling all the time. I mean, I coached at 5th grade, 6th grade this year. I'm watching 7th and 8th grade in Harbor Creek and Fairview. Like those are the ones. So they battle the whole way up. I just think that the tenacious defense of Fairview is going to be there. Harbor Creek's going to play great defense too. I just think that they got a few more weapons. They're a little bit more talented on offense. I think Fairview comes through because of that.
The crazy thing is about this game is that any time that you tell a team that they're playing Fairview, you have to include the fact that, look, you get to 40 points, you're going to win the game. And in any other game, you'd sign up for that in a heartbeat. The problem is I just don't know if Harbor Creek can get to 40. I would give Harbor Creek – I would maybe pick the Huskies, if not for the fact that, keep in mind, guys, just a day ago, they had to go up against a really stout Slippery Rock team and were trailing after a quarter and really had to battle to win that game. So, I think – when you look at the energy that they had to expend, and look, they're high school kids. They're going to get over it quick. They're going to be back and fully rested. I'm not saying that it's going to take a toll on them. It's just hard to win back-to-back games as tough as those two are. Slippery Rock, I think, is a lot better than what the 6th seed gave them credit for. And I think this Husky team, as good as they are, I just don't know if they can get to 40. And I say that just because I haven't seen anybody be able to shoot with consistency against Fairview this season. So I would take the Tigers close. But I think if we're being realistic, I think by the time fans leave the Haggerty Family Event Center on Saturday, the margin of victory combined between these two games, if it's above 10 points, I'd be stunned.
I think you're right. It's going to be close. It's going to be fun.
I hope you're right, because there's nothing more fun than that. There really isn't.
Yeah, it's just a shame we couldn't host it over at the Highmark Event Center. That'd have been really cool too. We even had Cold Sparks ready to go and everything too. Anyway, I digress. I'm going to be in West Virginia anyway, so I wouldn't get a chance to watch that game, but I will be following intently, certainly. Want to end with boys basketball, and the one game I think that we really want to look for here, we talked about McDowell State College. Cathedral Prep and Sharon, 14-team bracket, and it's the 1 and the 3. For the opportunity to have a District 10 championship. Farrell and Oil City, too, by the way, going to play for the final state playoff spot. That'll be a fun one at Westminster College on Friday. TK, Cathedral Prep, and I talked about this to John Cavanaugh, who was on the broadcast with me on Tuesday with the Ramblers. You talk about a team hitting a different gear. Jeremy Lynch has this team rolling. Is there anything that can stop them at this point? Because they are on a different planet in the postseason.
I would say themselves, right? I mean, again, we're talking about 17-year-old boys. If you come out with the wrong attitude, if you come out flat, if you expect to win, that they could really shoot themselves in the foot and be their biggest enemy. If they come out playing the way they've been playing, wow, tough to stop. Right, they're on all cylinders right now. They share the ball with each other. They're so athletic. They got so many people that can score. It's really hard to focus on anything because they're so talented at that 4A level, which we're not surprised that Cathedral Prep went down to 4A. I mean, wow.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Is like we can't really be surprised by this. You know, I mean, dropping down to 4A. You know, they did good in the last division too. So it's like it's so hard because you expect them to win, and I think that's a great answer because like my initial response when you asked that question, Isaac, was like nothing. Like there is nothing. But I think that's such a good way to put it because if we're thinking it, oh, they dropped down, they're going to dominate this tournament. They've been playing so well. Like you said, they had that great game against Grove City, backed up by Farrell. I mean, the tournament has been easy for them, so to speak. You know, not that any game is easy, but they're making it look easy. So I was gonna say nothing, but TK talked me into it. I just think that they have too much firepower going into Sharon, and that's not that Sharon's a bad team. They were 18-7 this year. They're putting up points. They've beat some really good teams this year. I just think that it's a David versus Goliath scenario, and I don't know if David can pull off this slingshot.
It's amazing. Go ahead, Tom.
Sharon, I like the schedule they played.
Yeah.
They Hickory 3 times now.
Yeah.
The talent that can stick with them, and you got a young Cathedral Prep team. I mean, I think Max Wallace is probably the only senior really Spencer Kane coming off the bench, but overall their group is young, and there's a lot of times where those young kids can overlook something, especially they beat Sharon by 15 plus early in the season. So I think those type of things as a head coach, that's what I'm worried about, them not taking it lightly, making sure they're focused. When you have things going so well, you just think you're going to step out there and win. So I think Jeremy Coach Lynch really's got to get them focused and ready to play the simple things about basketball.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I think we'd all probably take Prep in this game. I think the advantage for the Ramblers is, and I want to say they've had a favorable draw because that's disrespecting the teams that they've played, but you got Farrell off an emotional win against Fort LaBeouf, probably weren't at 100%, emotionally invested into that game. Grove City off an emotional win against Harbor Creek, had to go up against Prep on Tuesday, and now you get a Sharon team who just beat Hickory for a third time. That's never easy to beat a team 3 times in a row. So I think in terms of the emotional energy that's been expended, Prep has been able to get teams that have come off of really inspiring wins, and it's not easy to duplicate that. So I think that's a big part of the reason, too, why Prep, based on what we have seen, is probably likely going to win this game. Again, both teams are in the state tournament. Keep that in mind. Prep and Sharon are all in. Even the losers from Tuesday, Grove City and Hickory, are in. Then again, it's Farrell and Oil City further right for that final spot. And that's how I want to close this show. And I put this in our chain of communication just to kind of get a little bit of a feel for it. But in case you missed it, Farrell is playing for the 5th seed in 4A for boys, in large part because of a call that was made. Now, again, we're going to talk about this for a second, but to give you guys a frame of mind, Harbor Creek and Farrell were playing an overtime game in that consolation bracket on Tuesday. Harbor Creek was up, I believe, 3 with about 30 seconds left to go. They get the ball off of a scuffle, and a timeout gets called. Harbor Creek didn't have a timeout left, so that becomes a technical, and free throws ensue. Farrell cuts it to 1, and now they get a chance to shoot with no time on the clock or limited time on the clock, and they win the game. Again, that's the timing is a little bit different, but that's essentially how it went. And I'm just curious to get your perspective on this, TK, because there has been some conversation about, again, I agree that I think coaches, of course, need to know how many timeouts you have. But I'm wondering if you think giving out a technical foul and free throws is an appropriate punishment for something like that, and where you stand on that end of the game situation.
Well, that's the rule. If you're calling a timeout, the play's going to stop. And if you change everything by doing that, and you get an advantage. So that's the rule, and I think it's a good rule. I know talking to some of the staff from Harbor Creek and a couple of the players, the coach, made it clear in the timeout before that was our last timeout. We don't have any more left. I know coaching in my career, you're always telling your kids like, hey, we have timeouts. You can use it if you need it, or we don't have timeouts. But in the emotion of an overtime game and a play right there, I mean, you saw one of the best basketball players of all time, Chris Webber, do it in the national championship game. So it happens. It's unfortunate, but that's the rule. And I don't know that you could do anything else but punish the team with a couple shots. Unfortunately, it was just really bad timing for Harbor Creek. And I certainly don't want to put it all on that one play, but that's what we see. It's at the end of the game. But as a coach, we look back and there were so many other parts of that game that we could have made a play to change that outcome. So it certainly wasn't that play, because that kid hustled his butt off and got the jump ball, and was trying to make a heads up play by calling a timeout, which would have won the game. So it's just unfortunate that play ended in the way it did for Harbor Creek. But yeah, I support the rule, and I don't think there's any other way you can play it.
I agree. And that's kind of my argument too, is what else are you going to do? Like, you going to pull the player from the game? Are you going to, I don't know. I can't think of a good other way to do it, but I think the important thing is you just it's the game awareness, right? And I get it. Anxiety is going, the excitement is going, the adrenaline is going, you're just trying to do what you think you got to do to win the game. And it's common, but you just lose track of your timeouts. And I'm like TK. It's like blaming the refs in football. You can't bring it down to that one play, but I think you have to call it, and I think you have to, because it has to be penalized, right? It's like in college football, whenever you have teams faking injuries just to get people off the field and get people breaks to slow down the fast pace. Like, I tried to come up with a solution to have an answer, and I don't know that there is a better way to do it. Is it perfect? No, but it's a pretty good solution.
I think the one thing that you could argue is you take away the free throws and you made a common foul. I think these late game situations, we've talked about different things on our show, Tom, whether it be a shot clock, whether it be fouling up big late, they get magnified because of this situation. And it's unfortunate. I don't know what Macomb Fieldhouse has been. I don't know if it's been getting doused in holy water or something like that, but we've had controversy at that place in the last two times. Of course, remembering back to the Grove City holding the basketball against Harbor Creek for over 3 minutes. So the Huskies have been involved in some games like that, but just unfortunate the way it unfolded. And I think, again, in these late game situations when things are magnified, that kind of becomes the talk of the town. But, again, like you said, the rule is there. I think maybe from my perspective, it needs to be evaluated a little bit in terms of should it be a technical or just maybe a turnover force, something of that nature. But just a tough break for the Huskies. And, man, it would have been great to see them playing in that consolation final game. But Farrell now gets their shot against Oil City coming up tomorrow night. Guys, I'll tell you what. These next 48 hours are going to be wonderful for basketball. We've been talking about District 10 championship games for a long time. We get excited for football, but, TK, you know this better than anybody else. District 10 basketball championships never fail to deliver, and I don't see that being the case again on Friday and Saturday. I think we're going to get some great ones.
No doubt. I'll tell you what, it's not easy to win 10 championships. So when you get your opportunity, you got to be ready to go as a player, as a coach, as a program, because those opportunities don't come all the time. So like I said, when you get there, everybody's going to be battling as hard as they can. I really hope we have some really close games, which we have in the past. It just makes it fun for the fans. It makes it fun for the players. And it makes it terrible for the coaches.
I think people show up for these games too. Like when I first moved here to Erie, people were like, hey, football's great, but wait till basketball season. And it never disappoints. You don't even have to be a fan of these games. Take Prep Sharon, take Harbor Creek and Fairview. It's not just going to be those schools in those games. It's going to be just basketball fans in the county that want to come watch some great basketball. Like you said, get your daughters, get your friends, get your kids out there to go watch a player like MPP, because she may be the best high school player I've ever seen, at this level, at this stage. So yeah, get out and watch some great basketball, and it's a great weekend to do it.
Yeah, if you have a Saturday free, make plans for 1 and 3 o'clock, 1:30 and 3 o'clock at the Haggerty Family Event Center. Those are going to be two amazing games, and the same thing Prep taking on Sharon at Slippery Rock University on Friday night. And, of course, if you're up for making the trip, 6 o'clock, the start time for McDowell State College. That'll be a fun one as well. Trojans trying to move on in the state tournament. All right, we are done for this week. If you missed the draft podcast with Paul Adamczyk, make sure to go back and check that out. We'll show it again tomorrow night for your viewing pleasure. And then we'll see you Monday for Flagship City Sports Talk to break all this down. We got a lot to talk about coming up on Monday morning. Take it easy, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your February. We'll see you all in March. Take